I do want to, for the record, present the our finalized recommendations to you. And so, as we've discussed previously, these are our core values. We work very hard to live into these core values, and there are a few of them that rise to the top as we discuss and consider optimization of our district and how best to serve our children. When we are having this conversation about optimization or right sizing, we know that there are those who just don't understand or don't believe that there's a need for something such as this, and so we want to keep in front of us the rationale and the reasons why. Our goal here is for no other reasons really than to ensure that our school facilities work, that they operate effectively, and that they provide for the best learning environment for our scholars. And also that our teams, that we've got a strong staffing complement of folks who are able and willing and knowledgeable and caring and all those things to serve our children and provide them with the kind of educational experiences that they deserve. And that will help to position them well in life. And then lastly, that we have an opportunity to reinvest in our programs through the buildings themselves, the facilities that we offer, but also having the flexibility in our budgets to provide for the kind of programs and resources that our scholars deserve to have robust and compelling learning experiences. As we've shared previously, districts are funded per pupil. We are funded based on the number of scholars that you have in the district, and more to the point here in Mississippi, not only the ones that you have enrolled in your district, but the numbers of scholars who attend. And not to go too deep into this, but part of our reality is a declining enrollment, but another piece of our reality that is very real and that many urban districts are working through is because of some of the life circumstances, our scholars are not always in attendance in schools, and yet we must staff them and heat them and cool them and have the electricity and water and everything else that we need for the days that they do arrive. Unfortunately, a part of our funding formula requires that or is impacted by their attendance, their daily attendance. But schools are funded by the number of students who are enrolled in the district and who are enrolled in each individual school. And so as we understand it, those shared costs, those base costs, fixed costs that each school has, that's the central office staffing, the leadership, our custodial staffing, the lights, the heating and cooling, the water bills, all of that is shared across the number of scholars that we have in the building. And that's whether we have 100 scholars in that building or 300. And so, of course, with a smaller enrollment, we are paying more per student in that building, which limits our ability to do the things that we discussed earlier, making sure that the buildings work, making sure that we've got the staffing appropriate for our scholars' needs and the kind of programming that our scholars deserve. So we've talked through previously the various rationales for optimization or right sizing in the district, and they include all of these, ensuring that, or obviously because of our declining enrollment, we've got to react to and rethink our operations. We have significant facilities investments that are required in most of our buildings, not just the ones that we've proposed for closure or consolidation. Most of our buildings require continued investments and significant investments. We've shared previously that each year, while we've gotten better and better over time because of some of the partnerships and some of the investments we've made in salaries and compensation, because of some of the stipends that we offer, because of the grow your own efforts that we have, we've gotten better at identifying and hiring and maintaining stronger staffing, but it's hard for all school systems to staff schools and to staff districts. There's a shortage of teachers, there's a shortage of educators, and we're not immune to that shortage that's being experienced across the country. And so this is an effort for us to also better position ourselves to compensate and to support our educators and to provide them with teaching and working environments that they appreciate as well as bolstering school programs, increasing our competitiveness across athletics, academics, the arts, you name it, rethinking and better positioning us to utilize our Title I funding. That's the federal funds that we have to address some of the particular needs that we find in many of our schools. And then, of course, this opportunity to rethink how we use our buildings and how we offload or repurpose our buildings such that we don't have the carrying costs related to them. Again, we've shared lots of data in the past, but just want to keep in front of us all, we're not making these numbers up. This is just from 2015, 2016. Actually, if we go back further, as I understand it, earlier in the 2000s, we had upwards of 31,000+ scholars in our district. But just since 2015, 2016 school year, we have lost nearly 10,000, and more than that if we go further back in years. And so this is a pretty significant change to our district. It's about a third of our district that we've lost. It's a little more than a third, actually, of our scholars that we've lost. And although we've had some situations where we've had to close schools because of this facilities issue or that facilities issue, or some other issue, we have not adjusted our operations to a third of the scholars that we once had, and that's just our reality. And so, as you know, we came to you previously in October with a number of, with a set of recommendations, schools that we believe should be closed or consolidated, and feeder patterns that we wanted to rethink. And we committed at that time to go back and have some conversation with community members about the specifics of that optimization plan. Specifically, prior to that, we've been sounding the alarm that, hey, we, because of these enrollment declines, our budget has shifted and we can't continue to afford the things or to operate in the ways that we have been. But now that we've named specific schools, we've had this opportunity to go back and meet with members of the community and hear from them, those who believe this is necessary, those who believe it's absolutely wrong, and everyone in between. And we've taken that feedback. We've gone back to look again at some of the data that we've been reviewing, some of the contextual information and feedback that we've gotten, the serious concerns, numerous concerns that folks have named for us. And so what I'm sharing tonight is a revised optimization plan, and one that is cognizant of the feedback that we've received to date, and concerns about any changes, let alone the amount of change that we originally proposed. And so here we are with the updated optimization plan. These are the schools that we're recommending for closure and consolidation: Dawson, Lake, Lester, Marshall, Raines, Sykes, Shirley, G.N. Smith, Chastain, Witten, and Wingfield. Those schools are recommended for closure or consolidation in the fall, for the fall of 2024. Due to ongoing renovations and delays and just challenges and the complexity of the work that's being done at Bailey Middle School, our proposal is that Obama be relocated to Northwest Middle, but not until fall of 2025. And the same with Wells APAC, that it be relocated to the new Bailey building in fall of 2025, which would allow us more time to complete the renovations and have all the moving parts fall together. And so this is, again, the updated consolidation, closure and consolidation list. You'll recall that Clausel was listed previously. We got some feedback with regard to an apartment complex that was very near or just across from that school, and we went back to verify the number of scholars who were attending school there from that apartment complex, and it's a fairly significant number. And we do believe that to close that school, given that and some recent renovations there and numbers of scholars who attend other schools, even that it just makes sense to maintain Clausel Elementary. We also got feedback with regard to, we got feedback on many of these schools, if not all of the schools, most of them. But we also got feedback regarding Greene Elementary School and some of the work that's happening there, and scholars attending the school from the neighborhoods, and as well as the feeder pattern up through Kirksey and on to Callaway. And we were convicted that that was a school that we needed to not include in this set of recommendations, but to watch and with concerns, of course, continued concerns about enrollment, but to support for a bit longer. And then lastly, we included Key Elementary School in the original set of recommendations. And there again, we got a lot of a lot of feedback about the position of the school, the opportunities for a school there in that location, and of course, again, the feeder pattern that it sits in. And while we do have some concerns about the building, we are willing to go back and reinvest in that building and try to build it back up to serve the scholars there. This, of course, would decrease somewhat, at least, the number of schools that we've been looking at for closure and consolidation and repurposing of those buildings. There are also some other strategic conversations that we're having with members of the community and some of the leaders in the community around these buildings in particular, and some opportunities there. And so this is where we've landed. Just to review, the feeder patterns would look like this. For Callaway High School, Greene, North Jackson, Kirksey, and part of Powell Middle would articulate to Callaway. For Forest Hill, Bates, Oak Forest, Timberlawn, Van Winkle, and the two elementaries served at the Witten building, along with Cardozo and Peoples, would articulate up to Forest Hill. And it's actually part of Peoples, not all of it. And of course, Wingfield High School would be merged with Forest Hill. For Jim Hill High School, the elementaries would be Isabel, Key, Wilkins, Obama Elementary, Magnet, and Blackburn, Northwest IB and part of the People's population would articulate to Jim Hill. For Lanier High School, junior and senior high school, Galloway Elementary, Johnson Elementary, and Walton Elementary would articulate to Lanier. And actually, I believe part of Powell as well for the sixth graders would articulate to Lanier. So we'll need to update that. For Murrah High School, Boyd, Casey, McLeod, McWillie, Span, and Wells APAC would be the elementaries articulating up to in the Murrah feeder pattern, along with Bailey, APAC, Middle, and part of the Powell population. And so in this case, I know previously we had entertained Chastain, Chastain merging with Bailey and operating much as we do at Murrah, the APAC program along with the regular or general education program. With some of the other changes that we've considered and looking again at capacity levels in the other middle schools, we're confident that we can serve all of the Chastain scholars at Kirksey and Powell, rezoning there, and then from there some of the scholars from Powell would be rezoned to Murrah. And some of them, of course, would be zoning up, as we said previously, up to Callaway. All right. And so, in effect, just to be really clear, so in effect, Bailey would remain an APAC, an all APAC school, and Powell would become the neighborhood middle school for a broader catchment area and feed into a couple of high schools. And then Provine High School would be fed by John Hopkins Elementary, Pecan Park, the newly renovated, beautified Pecan Park, and Blackburn Middle. All right. I do want to keep in front of us, because we've made some shifts and made some adjustments to the schools impacted by this plan. I want to provide some updated financials. You've seen this previously. Again, the argument is the more students you have in a building, the more you can the more you can spread those costs across those students. The less students, the more you pay per student in a building. With the shifts that we've made, obviously the trending data is still the same. The enrollment decline has been to the tune of nearly $60 million. Our payments to charters have been approaching $50 million at $48.1 million. Total funding loss over the last several years since the fiscal year 2016, $107.7 million, average loss of $12 million a year. With the adjustments that we've made, the estimated personnel cost reductions tally about 4.29 million, which is down from about 6.4, I believe it was, previously. And so again, as we took a few of those schools off and made some shifts, this is the tally. The estimated operational cost avoidance, again, these are not dollars that, not all of these dollars are currently being spent, but they would need to be spent if we were to continue to operate in all of our current buildings. And so, again, looking at the current list with some of those buildings taken off, we're down to $8.06 million in cost avoidance. I want to be really clear. These are dollars that we would avoid spending if we're not operating schools in all of the buildings that we've listed in optimization plan. This is, excuse me, you've seen this list before. We've updated the list again with the we've updated the list with the current schools that are being recommended for closure or consolidation, and the total renovation costs sitting at $124.13 million for the remaining buildings, and you may recall it was up to 175, just over 175 million, with the other schools listed as well. We've shared this before, but not in all of the venues, and so I wanted to share this again. I know it's hard to see from a distance. The point here is that we have what is called our fund balance, and the fund balance is required 7.5, I believe, is the requirement, annual a requirement that we maintain 7.5% of our funds in this fund balance, and that could be used for emergencies or for any number of things. That's the reason for having it. And we had been maintaining pretty much around the 19 to 20 million for a few years there, and unfortunately, though, with after the year 2021, fiscal year 2021, we, because of our costs, because of our lost enrollment, because of the states truing up our payments to the current enrollment following the pandemic, there were some waivers that were issued during that time. Truing up all of that data, we found ourselves in a situation in the last 2 years where we had to offset our fund balance using federal dollars. Folks will understand we got a lot of federal dollars to help us to deal with some of our facilities needs, of course, to help with our scholars building back and accelerating their educational attainment and progress. And one of the allowances with those federal dollars is to realize some percentage of those funds as indirect costs. And it's using those indirect costs that we were able to shore up our fund balance to the tune of about $6 million to $6.4 million over the last couple of years. And so the larger point here is, as we've continued to decline in enrollment and in decline in funding, we've not yet trued up our operational costs for the district in order to keep in line with that decline in funding. We've been able to manage over the last couple of years and build up the fund balance with those federal dollars, but those federal dollars go away in the fall of 2024. And so it's just another reason why this is so critical for us to take these steps now. So with all of the concerns that we've heard, and we shared a lot of the feedback at the last meeting, I believe, concerns about class sizes, concerns about and you've continued to hear some of the concerns about safety, and wanting to make sure that the scholars could get along if you brought different groups of scholars together in a building. Concerns about, why has the enrollment declined, lots of concerns. But one of the big concerns that has been, frankly, a concern for several years is around the use of the buildings, and how we repurpose those buildings, how we ensure that those buildings do not create blight in our communities. And so I wanted to include in this conversation about optimization some of the work that has been done to better position us not to create more blight in our communities. So there are three or four, but we'll say three big strategies for repurposing buildings. You could sell or lease the buildings to someone who wants to utilize them now. You can partner with an entity to redevelop the buildings for housing or for mixed use or for some other use that would benefit the community or the area. Or you might demolish the building, depending on where it is and the condition of the building and the level of interest in doing one of the first two, sales, lease, or redevelopment. And so I'll come back to those in a minute. In thinking about our capacity as a school district to address this issue around repurposing schools, we know, and we've stated, emphatically previously, that we don't necessarily have that capacity or that expertise in-house. And so we've been challenging ourselves. We've been challenged to think about that and do something about that. And so here are a few strategies for that we believe will absolutely make the difference in how we approach this work. One is establishing a facilities repurposing advisory committee, and this committee would be one made up of individuals who have some background in redevelopment, some background in real estate, commercial real estate, background in finance, and creating some financial packets to help with the repurposing of urban spaces. And that sort of thing. And so we've already begun developing the committee, identifying individuals. We've reached out to board members to provide some recommendations. We've gotten some. There are others coming in, and so we're excited to stand this committee up. And this wouldn't necessarily be they wouldn't have the final decision power. In many cases, that would be with the board, but they would certainly be additional capacity and expertise to make some recommendations that we internally just simply don't have the capacity to do. And so very excited to have and very excited by the interest of folks who want to be a part of this work and help us to think through some opportunities that we have here with the district properties. Secondly, to fundraise. Fundraise in order to support this repurposing effort in particular. We've already reached out to the Kellogg Foundation for support in helping us with planning, and they've done some of that already, and with some continued facilitation of the work and planning and convening and developing some chronicling decision points and just supporting this committee really and being the point person for this work, but fundraising in order to do that. So we've done some private, we've sought some and received already some private funds in this vein, but also we are seeking some public funding to help with some longer-term planning and longer-term efforts to position these properties, to market the properties, to engage with realtors and developers, just to help to move the work along. The other thing, and really important, is to hire a professional. We've gotten some recommendations for just rethinking how we as a district operate, and even in talking to some of my peers in other places and other districts, building out an arm within the district to help to lead that work. But in the short run, we want to hire a professional, likely as a consultant, but a professional to work alongside and to help to lead this effort and serve, again, as the point of contact for any developers or folks who may want to acquire some of those properties. And so we're excited to move on that. And in fact, I have a proposal from someone who's done a good bit of this work here in Jackson, but as well in other places, in other urban centers. So we're excited that there's been some movement on that. And then lastly, partnering with other entities that specialize in or have an interest in some additional capacity around urban development and redevelopment projects. Thankfully, we're hearing, and even tonight, we're hearing more and more of other entities, nonprofits, and redevelopment authority and housing authority and city planning office, several other entities that do this work all day, every day. And with their expertise and with the professional assigned to our projects, we do believe that we'll position ourselves in a way that we've not been positioned previously, to make some smart decisions about properties so that they don't go to waste, so that they are returned to the community for the good of the community, and hopefully that we're also seeing some financial gain where possible with some of these facilities. Just quickly, none of this is set in stone. None of this is set in stone, but I wanted to come to you board members and to community with some of the thinking that has already happened around some of the buildings. We know that we want to engage with the committee of experts. We want to engage more broadly with community members around some of these buildings where there may be some opportunities for community use, but we have had lots of conversation and done lots of work around several buildings, and so I wanted to share that with you. So the thinking isn't that, there's a blank slate and we're starting from the ground up. So these are buildings that currently we're looking at, and where there's either been some direct contact, contact with us to acquire these buildings, or we believe they very easily could be. And it's Bradley, Brinkley, Barr, Rowan, Sywell, and Watkins for sale and lease. And again, none of this is etched in stone. These are just the current considerations. For redevelopment, and especially where there are entities that do redevelopment projects, or because a building happens to be in a space where some redevelopment is happening or planned, these are the buildings that immediately come to us. Again, Barr could be a sell or lease, or it could be for a redevelopment, or both. Brown, Enochs, George, Poindexter. And then lastly, as we think about the condition of buildings, the zoning of buildings in the neighborhoods where they sit, opportunities to create some green space or other recreational space, these are the buildings that immediately come to mind: Baker, Dawson, French, Raines, and Woodville Heights. Obviously, this is not an exhaustive list. This does not include all of the buildings that have been recommended for closure or consolidation, but wanted to give you a sense of the kinds of conversations that have already happened, the entreaties that have been made around these several buildings, or some of the indicators that suggest that one or more of these buildings could be demolished to create some space that could be used by the community.